The world famous Cam Bagrie. What?
Oh, yeah.
How the hell are you?
Yeah, not too bad, actually.
Is this our first interview of...
month of March is always pretty good down in Wellington. We tend to get a little bit of decent weather.
Oh, really?
March and April.
Plenty of wind?
Oh, she's, well, the odd day, but generally speaking, it's quite pleasant. It's just the other sort of 8 months of the year that's the problem. 8 or 9 months, that's the real issue.
But still windy, right?
Yeah, but that old sort of saying that you can't beat Wellington on good days bang on. The problem is we just don't get too many good days.
Okay, here's a question for you. Let's assume the Crusaders are going to make the final. And I know it's something we've only just started of Super Rugby Aotearoa. Who is going to be the other finalist?
At this stage, I'll probably say the Blues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, they can, they progressed an awful lot, last year, particularly in the NPC. Now the Highlanders gave them a decent,
I thought the Highlanders went. I reckon it's going to be the Highlanders.
No, just if I go through the other teams, right? I think the Chiefs are a wee way off the pace. Unfortunately, you probably don't want to hear that. But my Highlanders are pretty damn good in the weekend. Look, the Hurricanes, they can take anybody apart on their night.
Yeah.
If it's their night, watch out. But the Crusaders just seem a little bit too clinical for every other team around the country at the moment. But what's the space? It's still a bit of a long season ahead. And if we know from last year, those Kiwi teams are going to get out and they're going to get stuck into each other.
Well, I think, as we've discussed before, I'm a Chiefs supporter to the day I die. I'm actually a Cantab. I was born in Canterbury. And my sister is the personal development manager for the Highlanders. So it does start to get a bit confusing. But I've also got Razor on our books at Essential Talent. Man, he is one smart cookie, that guy. He is smart. So I think Chris.
They just seem to get all those little things done well, and little things they add up. It's sort of like a business 101 as well. Yeah,
exactly. What do you think of this whole Meghan and Harry thing? Have you been following that?
I have.
Keeping away from it?
I scratched my head over the Royals. It was on the lead story of the news. I wasn't quite sure it should be the lead story on the news, but
I agree. I agree, but I guess they sell papers, they sell advertising. People are interested, but I agree. It's Anyway, all right, let's get into it. We'll keep it brief tonight, since I think this is our first one of the year, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
So what was I said? Did I upset you or something? Do we need to?
No, I think everybody's on holiday for most of January, and then January rolled into February because we had Waitangi Day and that sort of stuff. And
I'm just having
now we're in March.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's rip into it then. Tell me what you think. What's going on with the economy? How are we going?
Oh, we're going okay. Okay is probably a little bit of an understatement, all things considered. All things considered, you say the New Zealand economy is going helplessly good. But we're also into what I call a little bit of the rubber hits the road sort of period at the moment. The rubber's hitting the road for the likes of the tourism sector because the tourists are not here. That was always going to be a summer, early 2021 story. So it's a Queenstown, the West Coast, all those sort of hotspots. They're doing it pretty tough at the moment. There's still other sectors out there at the moment. Construction, we just can't get enough staff to build the damn things. Horticulture, agriculture is going pretty well as well. Dairy prices up 15% middle of last week. Looks like a little bit of FOMO is creeping in there, fear of missing out. The biggest issue for a lot of those players is getting the staff. It's getting the people to pick the fruit. Finding the skilled people that can actually meet the demand on the other side. Behind the scenes, I think there's elements of pettiness that are starting to come through. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of pressure on cash flow in the next sort of 2 to 3 months. So what's that space?
What about interest rates? Because I'm sure I read something today. They think the interest rates might start to go up again. Is that Is that what they're saying?
There's been a pretty big what's called repricing across the market and where they think interest rates are going to be 12 to 24 months out. So 4 months ago, people were talking about the OCR could go negative in New Zealand. And we had New Zealand government bonds, you're trading down, well under 1%. In fact, some of them were getting close to zero. What we've seen in the past 4 months is that markets now think, well, the next move in interest rates could be a hike. The 5 and 10-year bond yield, which is like a proxy for the risk-free rate, it's gone up about 100 basis points. Now, interest rates are still incredibly, ridiculously low, but that's a pretty big move in the space of 4 months. And what it reflects is that the global economy, because we're seeing the same thing in Australia and the United States, people are starting to buy into what's called the reflation trade. Now, the reflation term is just a fancy way of saying things are looking a little bit better, and maybe there's going to be some inflation around the corner. I think at the moment markets are sort of hedging their bets. The Reserve Bank's still out there saying it's a long way to go, and we're going to keep interest rates low for a very long time. But what we're starting to see is markets are starting to think a little bit differently. And if this good news story continues, then odds are interest rates move up in 2022. Is it going to be a big interest rate story in regard to the magnitude of those moves? I think the answer is no. But for those people who have chased the property market all the way over 2020 and leveraged up, or chasing those yields down, if interest rates come up even a little way and you've been chasing those yields down, you might be asking a few questions about whether they've been fully compensated for risk.
Well, that leads nicely into the housing market. I mean, where are we at with that? Are we just going to continue to see this ridiculous growth over the next 12, 24 months, or is that are we in danger of not danger, but could there be a sort of sharp correction there?
Well, the property market has been a pretty big part of the recovery across the New Zealand economy over the past sort of 9 months. There's been about $150 billion worth of wealth created just through lower interest rates in the property market. And if you feel $150 billion better off, well, you're going to spend a portion of that. So the housing market, the Reserve Bank has had a defined strategy to get prices up because it creates more spending impulse across the economy. What it's also done is it's created a bit of a political bun fight because it's all about housing unaffordability and the gap between the have-nots. So by hook or by crook, the property market's going to slow. And it's going to slow for a couple of reasons. Look, one, the valuations are now looking a little bit rich. So Auckland house prices are now 10 times incomes. We've seen a bit of a speculative element in the market. So LVR-related restrictions, they're back in. And if the first round doesn't work, well, I suspect they'll tighten them again. The government's expected to announce some new mechanisms to cool demand over the coming 2 to 3 weeks. I suspect they're going to limit the amount of interest-only borrowing that speculators, the residential property investors can do. At the moment, about 40% of lending into residential investors is interest-only. Now, if you put a cap on that or limit that, you're going to need more cash flow to pay principal plus interest. So your ability to pay those higher prices are going to be greatly diminished. But the market's going to slow. If I have a look at the regions across New Zealand, I still think the regions have probably got a little bit more puff about them. And the market that worries me at the moment is actually Auckland. I think the Auckland housing shortage philosophy theory is massively overblown.
Really?
Auckland's population is slowing rapidly. There's no new migrants. And what we're seeing is that Aucklanders are actually moving out into the regions.
Yeah.
So I did some calculations a couple of weeks ago. And I think if we keep borders shut until the end of 2021, then Auckland will no longer have a housing shortage. Now, that does not mean Auckland does not have a housing problem. Auckland's housing problem is an affordability problem. It's not a housing shortage per se. They're fundamentally different. But what we're seeing across New Zealand at the moment is that we're still seeing massive underbuilding. Your Waikato's one, Hawke's Bay, plenty are.
How about
are
Palmerston North? Palmerston North just had about 10% growth in the last 3 months, I think it is, in their residential.
Yeah, but if you have a look at what's been going on for a while, it's an affordability play.
Yeah.
Right? Auckland's the truck and everybody else is on the trailer.
Yes, right.
And you've got a piece of rubber band in between. And then the problem was that the truck and the trailer got too stretched by the rubber band.
So if you take Auckland then, and you say that it's an affordability thing, not a supply and demand thing, is there the danger where there could be like a sharp correction, or is it always going to end up being kind of gradual over, 12, 18, 24 months? How does that sort of play out?
Well, you get a combination in Auckland where interest rates are even up mildly off lows. And you've got, imagine if borders are still shut into 2022.
Yeah.
Then I think you got a recipe for we're going to end up building too many houses.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of what's called intra-regional migration, which is basically the flow of people around New Zealand. Now, the net external migration has gone from 6,000 a month to about 600. So we're going to see in about 2 months, New Zealand's annual migration is going to go from 60,000 to about 8,000.
Far out.
It fundamentally changes the landscape in regard to how many houses you need to build. The problem is for a lot of regions, we've still got a legacy of underbuilding. But Auckland's been playing catch up in that over the last sort of 2 to 3 years. And another 18 months, or in fact, another 32,020, so it's about 12 months. If they keep building at the current run rate, I think that shortage is going to disappear. But once again, the shortage is not the big problem here. The issue is housing affordability. And this is what's driving a lot of people into the regions. Palmerston North, just up the road, Wanganui. Wanganui has been turbocharged for 3 years. Gisborne. Gisborne, 15, 20 years ago, used to suffer from depopulation. Everybody was out. Now Gisborne's underbuilding because everybody's coming in.
What's happening in the Canterbury market as far as housing goes?
Well, the Canterbury market was sort of put up there as the poster child. Post the earthquake, they just did whatever they could to release land. So it's you get an economic shock, then you ride sort of roughshod over everything just to get the goddamn job done. So there's a little bit of a lesson in that. So pre-COVID, Canterbury was probably the best functioning property markets we had in New Zealand. The Canterbury property was actually really cheap. And of course, what we've seen now is that you can only remain cheap for so long because you get a bit of you got a bit of a bullseye on your backside. So the Christchurch market has behaved just like everybody else around New Zealand, where lower interest rates, boom, you're into it. So the Christchurch has joined the story as well. Even though if I have a look at the supply demand situation in Christchurch, they're broadly imbalanced. But this sort of tells me that there's still that speculative element across the market. And hence the Reserve Bank has decided to turn down the heat. How
about Wellington? How about Wellington? Wellington has been going gangbusters, hasn't it, as far as property prices go?
And in Wellington, if I have a look at the supply demand situation, Wellington's been underbuilding for a long time. It's interesting. The other day I was talking to an organisation that is looking at doing stuff in Wellington and in Hawke's Bay. And chalk and cheese, one council versus the other. And Hawke's Bay's got the bigger problems. They've got all these people in motels. About 1,200 people in Hawke's Bay are in motels. It's an absolute disgrace. So the councils up there are doing everything they can to get that supply side response coming on board. Not such a friendly sort of a response here in Wellington. But if you have a look at Wellington, places like Saporarua have got a higher median rent than what we have in Auckland. And we think Auckland's got problems.
All right, brother. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's good to get back into it, and we'll see you again next week. I'm very grateful for your time.
No, take care and all the best.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Cam Bagrie, friggin' legend. Hey, a couple of things before I go. My my brother's girlfriend, Layla, they live in Sydney, and she's a bloody fantastic chef. And she's so good. And they're kind of got their Instagram and got their Facebook going, and they film stuff. And this woman's got such a friggin' amazing work ethic. She works for Google. At Google, they just have food around the place basically 24/7. They do. They just walk around, and there's all this bloody beautiful food. And so she's one of the chefs there. In fact, she picked up an award as well. And she's a really, really lovely person. So I thought I'd just do a little shout out for her. There's only a couple of people that watch this, but check out her website. Her name's Layla, and it's foodbylayla.com, and she's really cool. Also, my mum has got these things called Red Cross buns instead of hot cross buns. Red Cross buns. She works for the Red Cross buns. You can get them from Bakery in Washdyke, and Washdyke is in Timaru, so that's where you can order them. And Bakery came third. They got a bronze. I think the man's name is Stuart, who sounds like a great guy. Help my mum out, help Red Cross out. And yeah, they picked bronze up at these Hot Cross Buns Awards. So if you want some Red Cross buns, talk to Bakery in Washdyke in Timaru. What else was I going to talk about? I think I said this earlier, International Women's Day. Shout out to all the incredible women out there, the incredible women in my life, my mum and my sister in particular. Awesome women, cool women, kind, strong as hell, not to be messed with under any circumstances, but fantastic role models to their daughters and their granddaughters and their sons and their grandsons. So, Mum, Sonia, happy International Women's Day. And to all my girlfriends out there who are so clever and so smart and kind and wonderful, I hope you've had a really cool day today. And finally, I thought I'd just end on this whole thing with the Meghan and Harry thing, which, you know, just going to chuck an opinion out there. Haven't even watched the damn thing yet, but I've got to say, I think the firm's PR company is shit. I think that regardless of what has happened, that it's shit what they're throwing out there, because to me it looks like they're bullying this woman. That's what it comes across. And maybe that's not true. I don't know. Maybe it's a battle of the PR companies and they're just not winning. But that's what it feels like to me. And it feels like Meghan has just gone, no, I don't care. It's not going to happen. I'll go and make my own money. I'm not going to get bossed around by you people. You're all mad. You're all crazy. I'm not doing this. That's what it feels like to me. But, you know, who knows? Who knows? Well, hope you're doing well. And, yes, we'll get back into these interviews. Got some cool guests that are going to have agreed to have a chat over the next few weeks. We'll talk to Razor Robertson, who I've become good mates with, who's the coach of the Crusaders. So we'll have a chat to him. We'll have a chat to Nigel Latter as well, who is a great man, actually very funny guy, as in like great sense of humor. So he's agreed to have a chat, and there's a few others we've got in the pipeline as well. So hopefully you get something out of it. I think hopefully we'll chat to Gilbert Anoka. I might get Gilbert to come online and have a chat. He's a great guy, very clever. Anyway, enough already. Talk to you soon. Hope the week goes well. Happy International Women's Day. Peace.